I was idly passing the time in the lobby on the first floor when I happened to glance toward the elevator. To my surprise, I saw Emily and Mark step out of the elevator, looking completely dejected. Without thinking, I rushed over to them. What? What happened? The presentation, it's only been about 10 minutes. When I asked, Emily weakly shook her head. It's already over. Her voice was trembling, as if she was on the verge of tears. What in the world could have happened? My name is Tom. I'm 30 years old. Currently, I'm on the first floor of Grand Holdings, clenching my fists as I face the two of them. Good luck. I'm sure everything will be fine. At my words, Mark, the seasoned senior employee, nodded with a gentle expression. And then, there was Emily. She's the president of Johnson Advertising, and she bit her lip nervously. Yes. We've got this. With Mark's flyer design and your video, we're bound to nail it, right? Wearing a navy blue suit and with her rich black hair neatly tied back, Emily gave me an endearing smile. When she smiles, you can just catch a glimpse of her charming double tooth. Yes. The video is a piece I poured all my skills into, and I'm confident it'll shine. Please do your best in the presentation. As I bowed deeply, the elevator arrived from the upper floors, and its doors opened. Emily and Mark stepped inside and turned to face me. Well then. We're off. With those words, the elevator doors closed. As I watched the numbers on the display rise, my heart pounded in my chest. It's going to be okay. As I kept telling myself that, I took a seat in a corner of the spacious lobby. Today is the day of the advertising competition for Grand Holdings' new product. The budget and project scope are fairly flexible, which made it a challenging project. So Johnson Advertising has been working hard on it for months. Each company has been given a 45-minute slot to present their proposal, and our turn started last, at 6 p.m. Due to the recent resurgence of an infectious disease, a rule was made that only 2 representatives per company could attend. That's why Mark, who is second to none in our company in print design, and Emily, who created the estimates, were the ones to participate. While I stayed in the lobby in case they needed anything regarding the video I produced. Emily, who had disappeared behind the elevator doors earlier, is a 28-year-old president who was thrust into the role not as a superwoman, but because her parents, the previous heads of the company, passed away suddenly. The previous president had a strong influence, and after their sudden passing, several employees left Johnson Advertising. Only a few employees, including Mark, who was concerned about Emily, stayed behind, turning the company into a small but elite advertising firm. They've been scraping by on the ongoing projects they've managed to hold on to, but the financial situation is likely tough. We absolutely need to win this competition, which came to us through the connections of the previous president, to secure a major contract. Emily worked tirelessly to craft a proposal that would stand out from the competition, fighting with the numbers in the estimates. I joined this struggling company as a video editor a year ago. Johnson Advertising originally specialized in print work, and when video projects started coming in, they outsourced them to freelancers. However, as we began receiving more requests for combined flyer and video packages, they decided to hire an in-house video editor. That's when I jumped at the opportunity. I had initially worked in sales after graduating from college, but it wasn't a good fit for me. As a result, my performance wasn't great, and my salary was low. One day, as I was casually watching videos online, I came across an ad for a crowdsourcing site. It was a site where people looking to take on various jobs and those looking to outsource work could connect. Through this site, transactions could be done without revealing personal information like addresses or real names. Of course, there were intermediary fees involved when using the site. Intrigued by the idea, I started looking into it. In today's internet-driven world, I realized that just about any job could be done from home, and the more I read, the more I wanted to try it myself. After researching jobs that seemed accessible and lucrative for beginners, I landed on video editing. The only time I had ever worked on video production before was once in a high school class. At first, I couldn't do it at all, and even inserting a single line of text was a struggle. But as I gradually got the hang of it, I started to enjoy it, getting absorbed in the details, and ended up receiving a decent grade. My teacher even praised me, saying, "You've got a good eye." Remembering that, I began teaching myself video editing. After a few months of studying, I uploaded some of my own videos to a crowdsourcing site, using the name of my old cat Mittens as a nickname, and applied for every project that needed a video editor. The initial gigs paid very little, but the satisfaction of having my work recognized as professional gave me a sense of accomplishment. However, as time went on, I started wanting more. There were many projects that didn't pay enough for the time they took, and I began to feel exhausted. Then, a relatively well-paying job appeared. The client's name was missed. I applied, not expecting much, but I got the job. Not only that, but I received high praise for my work. From then on, Mist would occasionally send me projects, and I spent my evenings editing videos as a side job after returning home from my sales work, leading a pretty hectic life. But eventually, I found myself wanting to quit sales and make a living solely from video editing. It was around that time that I saw the job posting from Johnson Advertising urgently seeking a video editor. I jumped at the chance and sent in my application along with a sample of my work. I had more confidence in the videos I produced for clients, but I hesitated to show those to others. So I created a new video that showcased all my current skills. Emily's eyes lit up when she saw it. And that's how I ended up leading a fulfilling life as a video editor at Johnson Advertising. Since joining the company, I've completely stopped taking jobs through the crowdsourcing site. Somehow, it didn't feel right to use the skills I was now dedicating to Johnson Advertising for other companies. There was also the possibility that those other companies could become rivals at some point. Not long before that, Mist had sent me a polite message saying they were hiring an in-house video editor and would no longer need my services. The message was so carefully worded that it left a good impression on me. I replied with a similarly thoughtful message, thanking them for everything, and since then, I haven't logged into the crowdsourcing site at all. As these thoughts wandered through my mind, I was praying for the success of Emily and Mark's presentation. It must have been about 10 minutes. I heard the sound of the elevator arriving on the first floor. If it was someone from the company we were pitching to, I thought I should at least bow in greeting. I stood up from my chair and looked toward the elevator, and then, to my shock, Emily and Mark stepped out, looking completely dejected. Without thinking, I rushed over to them. What happened? It's only been about 10 minutes. Oh, is it my turn? When I asked, Emily weakly shook her head. It's already over. Her voice trembled, as if she was about to cry. They asked to see the estimate first, and when I showed it to them, they said there's no way we could discuss anything with those numbers. I was outraged. What the hell? We put so much thought into this, and poured our hearts into the flyer and the video, and they didn't even bother to look at them? At my words, both Emily and Mark hung their heads. I'm sorry. You worked so hard, and because of my estimate, not only did we not get a chance to present, but they didn't even take a look. I grabbed the presentation materials they were holding. What? Emily's eyes widened in surprise. There's still plenty of time left. I'm going to protest. If they're still going to turn us down, then I don't care how big they are. I'm fine with not working with a company like that. Even if they end up hating us, right? Leaving those words behind, I stepped into the elevator and quickly pressed the close button. As the doors shut, Emily and Mark's stunned faces disappeared from view, and the elevator slowly began to move. The presentation room is on the 10th floor. I anxiously watched the numbers rise as the elevator ascended. When suddenly, it stopped at the 4th floor. Hurry up already. I gritted my teeth as I waited for the door to open, and when it finally did, I found myself face to face with a breathtakingly beautiful woman. She gave a slight bow and stood next to me. The faint scent of her perfume wafted through the air. But I didn't have time to be distracted by her. Once I confirmed she was on board, I quickly pressed the close button again. I fixed my eyes on the numbers indicating the floors. Then, the woman spoke. If you keep shaking like that, the elevator might stop. Her words snapped me out of it. I realized I'd been nervously tapping my foot against the floor. Sorry. I quickly stopped fidgeting. She smiled softly. It's okay. 10th floor. Are you here for the advertising presentation by any chance? I was a bit surprised and nodded. Just then, the elevator arrived on the 10th floor and the doors opened. As I hurried to rush out, the woman called after me. We're heading to the same place. Let me guide you. Oh, and I apologize for the late introduction. She handed me her business card as she spoke. I didn't think I needed a guide or an introduction, but I took out my own card and exchanged it with her anyway. When I looked at the card she handed me, I was shocked. It had the words Marketing Department and the title Manager printed on it. Manager. Sophia. I asked in surprise, and Sophia smiled. Yes, I thought I'd drop by since it's almost the end of the presentation time. Before she could finish, I blurted out. What do you mean by judging only by the budget without even looking at the content? Sophia's eyes widened at my words. What do you mean? I, recalling the pained expression on Emily's face, couldn't help but spill the details in a heated tone. As I spoke, Sophia's eyes narrowed, and she quickly walked down the hallway, leaving me behind. I hurried to follow her. Sophia burst through the meeting room door, and the two men inside, who were tidying up, looked at us in surprise. They seemed to think the presentation was already over, which infuriated me and filled me with frustration. What are you doing? There's still time left. The two men smiled and replied that it was already finished. It seemed they hadn't noticed my presence. Then, Sophia glanced back at me and said apologetically, I'm sorry, but this is going to be an internal matter. Could you please wait outside for a moment? I nodded, and she quickly shut the heavy door. The door was so solid that no matter how hard I tried to listen, I couldn't hear a thing. I resigned myself to waiting for the door to open again. After a while, the door opened, and the two men, along with Sophia, deeply bowed to me. We sincerely apologize for our rudeness. You may no longer wish to do business with our company, but if you could spare the time, we would very much like to see your presentation. What do you think? Their polite apology caught me off guard. Of course. I'll go get the others right away. As I turned to leave, Sophia called out, Tom. She had remembered my name from the card I gave her earlier. Normally, we only allow 2 representatives per company, but since you're already here, we'd love for you to join us as well." With those words, it was decided that I would join the presentation as well. 5 minutes later, Emily, Mark, and I were once again facing the 2 men from Grand Holdings and Sophia. After presenting the estimate, we showed them the flyer and video concepts, and Emily confidently delivered the marketing strategy presentation. Once all the explanations were complete, we moved on to the Q&A session. Sophia was the first to speak. What was the reasoning behind this estimate? When asked, Emily responded. She explained that they were determined to win. So they slashed the budget as much as possible and made every effort to differentiate themselves from the competition. She proudly mentioned that both Mark and I worked quickly, allowing us to cut down on labor costs significantly. I felt a bit of pride when she included me in her praise for being efficient. But then, Sophia sighed and shook her head. "It's too low." We exchanged puzzled glances at her unexpected words. "What you've presented is remarkably well done, including the strategy. If we were to award this job at this price, our company would be laughed at. That's how good it is." Despite her harsh words about the pricing, she was full of praise for the content of our presentation. I felt a bit confused. While I apologize for our representative's earlier rudeness, I can understand why they didn't look at the content. Sophia's words made me furrow my brow. They thought it was so cheap that it wasn't even worth looking at. All of us widened our eyes in shock. The 2 men who were overseeing the presentation were apparently highly competent and had been entrusted with this task due to their impressive track records, but they were also exhausted from listening to presentations all day. In that state, they had come to a conclusion. If the budget doesn't align, no amount of discussion will matter. Although we weren't given a budget range, Grand Holdings had a rough idea in mind, and they were looking for proposals that fit within that range. They quietly marked proposals that were too expensive as out of bounds. And for those, no matter how compelling the presentation was, it felt like a waste of time. I could understand that mindset to some extent. Sophia clarified the doubt that had been growing in my mind. If the price is too low, they assume the quality will be subpar as well. I noticed Emily trembling slightly beside me. Sophia looked at us intently, as if to drive her point home. Don't lower your prices too easily. Don't undervalue your work. Her firm statement made Emily bow her head. I'm the one who prepared the estimate. I'm sorry. I didn't know better. The rest of us also bowed our heads in unison. I sensed a faint smile from Sophia. When I cautiously looked up, I saw her beautiful face smiling warmly. It was a stark contrast to the fierce expression she had just moments before. If this were the final price, we'd be tempted to jump at it. But I want to show respect for the quality of your work, especially the video editing. It should be priced like this. Sophia showed us the number on her calculator, and we were astonished. It was at that moment that I realized just how underpaid I had been for the work I did on the crowdsourcing site. Seeing our reaction, Sophia chuckled a bit. We can't declare a winner for the competition just yet, but if we do end up working together, we'll discuss the pricing. Emily, Mark, and I couldn't help but smile as we exchanged glances. We left Grand Holdings with a strong sense of satisfaction from the presentation. Emily covered her face. It was too cheap. How embarrassing. Video editing really is a specialized skill. I knew it was difficult, but I must have been outsourcing for ridiculously low prices. I wish I could go back and pay mittens extra now. At her words, I whipped around to face her. What? What did you just say? Mittens. At my outburst, Emily's eyes widened in surprise. What? Oh, yeah. Before you joined, I used to outsource all our video work through a crowdsourcing site. I thought I was offering a bit more than other listings, but now I realize it was still way too low. I shook my head in disbelief. Wait, are you missed? Emily's eyes widened even more. What? How did you know? Wait, no way, could it be? Seeing her shocked expression, I confessed. I'm Mittens. Cheap? You were actually paying quite generously compared to others. It really motivated me back then. On crowdsourcing sites, you don't typically know the real names or addresses of the people you work with. You might know what state they live in if they share that much, but I never imagined I'd run into a client I had worked with here. So, basically, I just transitioned from being an outsourced freelancer to a full-time employee. What a coincidence! I couldn't help but laugh at how funny the situation was. Emily laughed along with me, chuckling softly. When we were hiring for a video editor, I was secretly hoping Mittens would apply. I thought about reaching out, but direct contact is against the rules, and you hadn't shared your location. Turns out, you were in Tokyo all along. On a crowdsourcing site, it's strictly prohibited for people who meet through the platform to engage in direct transactions without going through the site. Hiring someone as an employee would likely fall under that same prohibition. Now it all makes sense. I found myself comparing every applicant to Mittens, and when you showed up, I was shocked. I thought, this guy is just as good as Mittens. Well, of course, it's because it was you. We spent some time reminiscing, sharing stories about past projects. How tough some were, how others felt like we were perfectly in sync. Then, Emily suddenly turned serious and said, I'm sorry for underestimating your skills. I promise to properly evaluate your work from now on. So, will you continue to stand by my side and lend me your strength? Her earnest gaze made my heart race. I could feel my face turning red. Of course. I'm looking forward to it. At my words, Emily smiled warmly. I couldn't help but think how much I adored that smile. A few days later, the office phone rang, and I absent-mindedly picked it up. As soon as I introduced myself, I heard a soft exhale on the other end. Thank you for taking my call. This is Sophia from Brand Holdings. I wanted to thank you for your time the other day. Hearing Sophia's voice made me sit up straight. So, what was the result of the competition? I swallowed nervously as I was about to transfer the call to Emily, our president. But then, Sophia continued, after reviewing the submissions, we've decided that we would love to work with Johnson Advertising on this project. Would you be willing to take it on? I pumped my fist high into the air. All the other employees turned their eyes toward my raised fist. Additionally, I'd love to strengthen our partnership. How about we have a small dinner sometime to get to know each other better? Still holding the phone to my ear, I said, absolutely. We'd be honored, and gave a deep bow, even though she couldn't see me. And a few days later, the same team that attended the presentation gathered at a somewhat upscale restaurant for dinner. Honestly, I was so nervous that I could barely taste the food. However, Sophia and the two men from Brand Holdings were in great spirits. And the men kept apologizing whenever the conversation drifted back to the presentation. I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for them, imagining that Sophia must have given them a stern talking to. We were supposed to head to a bar for a second round, but both men, who had young children at home, left quickly to return to their families. Mark also decided to call it a night, saying he couldn't drink anymore, so it ended up just being me, Emily, and Sophia heading to the bar. Sophia was the person I was most nervous around, so both Emily and I were on edge, trying not to make any mistakes. But Sophia seemed to be used to this kind of setting and naturally helped us relax. Once the atmosphere had warmed up, Emily excused herself, saying, "Oh, I'll just go to the restroom for a moment," leaving me alone with Sophia. In the brief silence that followed, the scent of her perfume seemed to grow stronger, making my heart race. Sophia leaned on her hand and moved her lips, asking me, "So, do you have a girlfriend?" Her question caught me off guard, and I quickly shook my head from side to side. "I don't have one." Sophia chuckled softly. "Then, there must be someone you like, right?" Her words hit the mark, and I found myself flustered. Sophia stared at me intently. I wish that person was me. My eyes widened in surprise. As I stood there speechless, Sophia suddenly burst into laughter. "I'm just kidding." "Well, I'm not one to linger where I'm not wanted, so I think I'll take my leave now." She picked up the check as she spoke. "No, please. Let us cover it." I tried to stop her, but Sophia winked at me. "I'm going to be relying on you from now on. Let's keep in touch, okay?" She turned away but then glanced back, leaning in close to whisper in my ear, "If things don't progress with Emily, don't be surprised if I make a move, okay?" With that whispered in my ear, Sophia finally left the bar. As I replayed the whole exchange with Sophia in my mind, my heart still pounding, Emily returned. "Oh, where's Sophia?" she asked, and I barely managed to respond. "Oh, she said she was feeling a bit tipsy and decided to head home." Emily's face fell slightly as she replied, "I see." A heavier silence hung between us than the one with Sophia. "Well, shall we head out too?" Emily suddenly suggested, and though surprised, I agreed without hesitation. There was no reason to stay. We walked slowly toward the station through the night streets. Neither of us said a word. The only sound was that of our footsteps. Earlier, I actually saw something, Emily suddenly said, catching me off guard. "Saw what?" I asked nervously, and she pressed her lips together, forcing a smile. "You and Sophia looked like you were having a moment," she said, turning her gaze forward. "Sophia, she's really beautiful, isn't she? You're amazing, Tom, to catch the eye of someone like her. Compared to that, I'm just so incompetent." Emily rattled on quickly. "Do you think Grand Holdings might try to poach you?" "At the very least. I want you to stay by my side when it comes to work, but is that too much to ask?" As Emily continued to ramble, I hugged her from behind. "The one I love is you, Emily." Her shoulders trembled. "What?" I whispered in her ear. "I love everything about you, the way you've taken on the role of president so suddenly and are doing your best. How you always smile to hide your worries, and that charming double tooth that shows when you smile. I love it all." "No way, my double tooth, it's my biggest insecurity. I've been planning to get braces once the business starts making more money." I couldn't help but laugh softly. "Well, I'm glad the business isn't booming yet." My light-hearted comment made Emily laugh softly as well. "Are you sure you want me?" "Sophia is so much more." I tightened my arms around her. "I want you, Emily." Emily squeezed my hand tightly. I'm so happy. She looked up at me with a smile. From today on, let's be partners both at work and in life. The smile she gave me, with her little double tooth showing, was the most adorable I'd ever seen. And a few years later, Jake, Rick, lunch is ready. Go wash your hands. At my call, our sons, Jake and Rick, came dashing out of their room. It was right in the middle of summer vacation. Jake and Rick, both in elementary school, were enjoying their break to the fullest. Their little sister, Lily, was having her own fun at kindergarten, which fortunately stayed open all summer. So she didn't have to worry about the break. Since then, Emily and I had gotten married and started a family. Our family quickly grew, and now we are a family of 5. During long breaks like this or when one of the kids is sick, I work remotely to take care of things. It makes more sense for me, the video editor, to work from home than for Emily, who's handling her duties as the company president. After surviving the whirlwind of the day, at around 6 p.m., I'm home. I'll hurry and get dinner ready, Emily would say as she walked through the door, her usual greeting. In line with her wish to cook dinner herself whenever possible, we wait for her on days when she can come home on time. The kids swarm around her, and I have to peel them off one by one. It's a familiar sight by now. Come on, now. Mom's busy, so be patient for just a little longer. I guide them back to their room to tidy up. After that, we go through the routine of a quick dinner, bath time, and then Emily reads a story to the kids as she puts them to bed. Finally, it's just the two of us, alone. Is it childish to say this is the time when I get to have Emily all to myself? As for Johnson Advertising, after that day, we started receiving regular work from Grand Holdings. This opened the door to many other opportunities. And now, with a growing staff, the company has become a solid mid-sized advertising agency, handling a wide variety of projects. And Sophia? Well, she ended up marrying a handsome heir, and we were invited to the wedding. It was a dizzyingly grand event, and Sophia, glowing in her bridal gown, looked incredibly happy. I still think back to that presentation that almost ended after just 10 minutes. My actions as a professional that day might not have been the most commendable. I mean, I was ready to storm into their office and demand they hear us out. But if we hadn't pushed to present at that competition, we wouldn't be where we are today. The delicious smell of sizzling meat filled the air, tickling my nose. Tonight's dinner must be Emily's favorite, chicken sautéed in butter. Surrounded by the happy scent that filled the house, I couldn't help but smile as I urged the kids to continue tidying up.